Oh, there's Mr. Danza.
Oh.
Sweetie Pie's coming on.
Here I am, boys.
There we go. Hey!
There he is.
Hey, Tony.
How are you?
Tedesco, hi. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
Good to be seen.
Yes.
Yeah, we are good.
Friends now. So this is awesome.
And you know what I did? I brought my ukulele.
Did you?
Yes.
Nice.
And there she is, Lucy. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Nice.
Tedesco, do you have yours?
Huh?
Yeah, I should bust mine out too.
Okay.
Oh, you play Tedesco?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried to adapt the American songbook to it.
Really?
Yeah, so instead of playing, 5 foot 2, 5 foot 2, oh, those 5 foot 2, anybody? See, instead of doing that, you do
It had to be you?
when I want rain, I get sunny weather. I'm just as blue as the sky. Since love is gone, can't pull myself together. Yes, I'll hang my tears out to dry.
Oh.
That kind of thing.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Oh.
Yes, my bad.
Okay. So maybe this time I can convince you to sing the theme song, Tony. Okay? I don't know.
Keep pushing me, Lee.
I'm going to keep pushing it, okay? You can definitely sing it better than I can sing it. Everyone will agree with that.
Oh, that's for sure.
Okay. It's only 4 lines. Okay?
Welcome,
Uh-oh.
ladies and gentlemen, to a very exciting episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tedesco.
And I'm Mealy, and...
I'm female Mealy.
All right, my wife is here. My wife doesn't listen to very many of my podcasts, even though she loves me very much. But when she heard who we're having on today, she said, I need to be there. I need to meet Tony Danza.
She's a wise woman.
Yes.
All right, so Mealy, what was the process to get Tony Danza on our tiny little extremely important podcast?
Okay, so many, many moons ago, I was a big Oprah Winfrey fan. I know. Hard to believe. I love Oprah Winfrey. And
This is going to get to Tony Danza at some point,
It
right?
will. It
Okay.
will. So I'm watching Oprah Winfrey, much like Peg Bundy would. And I did not put my cigarette out in the casserole, though. But anyway, and Tony Danza is on. So this is even before I'm a teacher. And he's talking about how he taught for a year in Philadelphia schools. So as you know, I have this brain that constantly loses things and brings things back. And so I'm sitting around one day thinking, who can be a guest on the podcast? And I go, hey, I remember Tony Danza was on Oprah Winfrey a long time ago, and he taught for a year. That would be great. So I've lived just outside Philadelphia a long time ago. Well, that's where I grew up. So
Many moons ago.
many moons ago, and suns, and stars, and asteroids.
A whole
And-
Beetlejuice ago.
Yes, a whole Beetlejuice ago. Light years, parsecs ago, whatever.
Kessel Run.
I was
all over
doing the
again.
Kessel, 12 Kessel runs ago. I was living in Philadelphia. So anyway, hey, is this the part where, you go to listen to Tony Danza, or are you still fast forwarding through this to try and see what Tony Danza's on? So anyway.
I know I am.
So I go on the Facebook, or the book, as one of my friends calls it. I'm on the book, and I go, hey, how many degrees of separation am I away from Tony Danza? I'd like to have him on my teacher podcast.
Just threw this question out to, the world?
Just
or, did you ask to somebody specific?
Just to my Facebook friends. And I said, I know people live in Philadelphia. I know I've got some teacher friends. Let's see what happens here. So, for the first person to text back is Nancy McElhenney. She says, my Uncle Rico taught Tony Danza how to, tap dance. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's great. She's like, sadly, Uncle Rico passed away 3 years ago. I'm like, he can't help us. Okay. So, anyway, so that doesn't work. So Millie Zupich chimes in and says, hey, her friend worked with Tony Danza. And I said, that's great. Can you connect me with her? She talks to her and says, hey, can you blah, blah, blah to Tony Danza? So I'm waiting a week, and I'm like, can I please talk to this friend? Her friend's name is Snezana. Oh, Snezana, don't you cry for me, as some people say. Yeah, I'm on a roll today, guys. Like a sesame seed, I'm on a roll. Okay?
Oh,
So,
no.
so Snezana, she doesn't know Tony Danza. She worked at the same school, big school. Tony mentions it in the podcast, 200 teachers or something insane like that. So she didn't really know who he was. But she knew this other lady whose name was Harlena. She says to Harlena, hey, this guy's trying to talk to Tony Danza. Can you help him out? So I get an email. I call up Harlena. Harlena is awesome. Harlena had gone on a road trip with Tony Danza to New York. Harlena had helped out Tony with certain issues that he was having with students because she was a guidance counselor and special needs specialist. But she didn't have Tony Danza's direct contact info. She refers me to Joe. Joe Connolly. Tony mentions him, honestly, in the first chapter of the book. He was a first-year teacher. They ate lunch together. They went out to boxing matches together. So I talked to Joe. Joe is really cool. I say to Joe, listen, this is a really big ask. I understand that you're friends with a celebrity, and you can only ask them so many favors per year before they get annoyed with you and don't want to pay you attention anymore.
Right.
And I kind of explained
you don't want to abuse that friendship.
Right. Tony Danza's not singing at every bar mitzvah and birthday party of all of Joe's friends and relatives. But I tell him what the podcast is about, and it's teachers talking about teaching stuff and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I'll see what I can do. So then I eventually get a text that says, Tony says he's going to be on the podcast.
So without any further ado, we introduce to you the taxi driving, good copping, boxing, tap dancing, talk show hosting, baby talking, award-winning, garbage-picking, field goal-kicking, Philadelphia phenomenon, the boss himself, Tony Danza.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very exciting episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tedisco.
And I'm Mealy.
And I'm Lindy.
That's my wife. And today we have with us Tony Danza.
Hey,
Yeah. Okay. So,
Tony Danza.
I know. So, the origin story you've probably already heard because we record a little thing, and I think that's going to go on the beginning of the thing. But anyway, we got Tony Danza here, and I saw him on Oprah Winfrey's show. You guys remember Oprah Winfrey back in the day. She's still around, I believe. And
one time I did her show and had my mother on the show with me.
Oh,
one of the great things. Yeah, I mean, it was years ago when I was in Taxi.
Was it like a mom's?
No, it was just I did the show, and they asked me to do the show, and I said, "Can I bring my mother on?" And so I did that. I used to do that a lot. I did the Mike Douglas show one time. Mike Douglas, remember
you
these?
You did the Mike Douglas show.
Oh,
Tony,
I've been around.
Man,
William,
wow.
I've been around a while. But,
I know the Mike Douglas show. I don't know if everyone else knows the Mike Douglas show.
I don't.
I did the Mike Douglas show, and Mike, unlike Merv Griffin and all the other shows, Mike used to have you on as a co-host for the whole week.
Okay. Oh, wow.
He asked me to do the show, and I said, certainly, if I could bring on some guests.
Nice.
And so I brought my mother, my grandmother, my fight manager. It was hysterical, you know.
Nice. I'm on this is effectively the Tony Danza show today. And so I've got my wife on.
You brought your wife. That's
I
right.
brought my wife.
Yes.
That's such an Italian boy from New York move. Like that's classic.
You know what's funny about it really though? My grandmother, she must have been 80 by then, close to 80, she got laughs. She got laughs.
Nice. Nice.
You know, she's 5'9", about 200 pounds, but she got laughs. It was amazing.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Anna Camisa, the great Anna Camisa.
Aww, how sweet.
So I saw Tony Danza, 2009, 10, whatever it was, and he's on the show and he's talking to Oprah about how he was being a teacher. And so it stuck in my head. Like I said, I never saw the actual show. I have read the book, but I said, we were trying to think of who can we have as guests? Because, we do a weekly show. We're always trying to think of who will be good guests. And we've had a lot of our teacher friends that are funny. Some people I've met on Twitter and what have you. So I said, hey, Tony Danza's a teacher. Let me reach out. And so without going through all the rigmarole of how I connected the 6 degrees of separation to me and Tony. Tell us a little.
Joe, we could mention Joe Connolly, the great math teacher from Northeast High.
Yes,
definitely.
And big thanks to Joe.
He's your connection.
Yes, he is the connection, and I'm forever grateful that Joe said yes. I will send the email on to Tony, because as I said to him, I said, "Hey Joe, I know you only kind of know me through another person, and I know you don't want to take advantage of Tony's friendship too much and ask Tony to sign everything and dance at every kid's wedding and all this kind of stuff." But I said, if I'm with the teacher to teacher here, can we kind of see if we can get him on? And I know what really brings you here is that you have the passion and you have the love of education and educators. And I know that's really where your heart is, and that's kind of why you're here. So kind of walk us through, though.
William, before you ask me this question, just 2 observations. One, how can you, if you have ever taught, how can you resist unprofessional development? That's number 1. For anybody who's done professional development, it's such a pleasure to do unprofessional.
Thank you, Tony.
And the other thing was,
people love the name.
And the other thing was that when I was on Oprah, I told her I was trying to be a teacher. I wasn't a teacher. I would say I just was like, that year I constantly felt that I was failing, but that that it was, it was a tough job, and that it just took so much effort to say to yourself that you're to say that that would be tremendous that you made that. That would be but I tried.
Yes.
Hard.
And we've talked on other episodes that imposter syndrome, that you went through it just like we did. The first day that you shut that door and it's like, oh, here's these kids and I'm the adult in the room, so I guess I'm the teacher. Uh-huh. And you're just kind of like, so what do I do? You had all these thoughts and kind of stuff like that. So, but back up just a little bit, kind of walk us through the origin story and why you wanted to become a teacher and how you actually got in the classroom. Because I think some people think, oh, Tony was a teacher. When did this happen in his career? So this was like post-Taxi, Who's the Boss?
It was post everything. I had a really great friend that I was lucky enough to work with. I did A View from the Bridge on Broadway when Arthur Miller was still alive. And he, I played Eddie Carbone. I played the big part. And I got to work with Miller. And I got to hang out with him at Elaine's after the show every night.
Wow.
And we talked a lot about it. And I really, really, he was really something. But one of his great lines is that the best that we can hope for is that we end up with the right regrets.
There you go.
And so I was not working. When you're an actor, no matter how good, most actors, there are some who are immune to this, but for the most part, if you're an actor, you really are unemployed most of the time. I mean, it is.
Yeah,
there's great moments, but there's a lot of downtime. And I was in one of those times, and I was sneaking up on 60. I was coming up. I used to say I could smell 60. Uh-huh. So I was really dying over this. And one of the things that strikes me is that as you get older, each decade sort of signifies something. Like I remember when I turned 40, I was no longer young anymore, but I wasn't old, and I sometimes could make a mistake trying to pretend I was still young, or convince myself. So I understood that. In 50, it's funny today. Jason Robert Brown, the great musical man, wrote Honeymoon in Vegas and the last 5 years and so on. He's turning 50.
Oh, wow.
A video for him today for his birthday. When you turn 50, you start waking up with injuries. you go to sleep, you're fine. You wake up with a broken leg. Or, big bruise. How did I do this? Okay, so 50. So now 60 comes, and it is particularly an interesting age for a teacher. Because when you're a teacher, one of the things you really have to do is self-reflect. Is take a look at what you're doing, how you do it, and be self-reflective. Well, 60 is like the self-reflective age because of what, Arthur Miller said. You got regrets? Here's the time to think about them. So I had a few regrets, and one of my big regrets was that I had never taught school. I had gone to college to teach school. I went through student taught. I didn't have the greatest experience, but I did it, and I've always, and then I got sidetracked. I became a fighter and I ended up in TV. It's a long story, but I always held this romantic image of teaching, of changing lives, of, our kids and all that. So here I was turning 60, and I was also very, very interested in what really was going on in our public schools. Because if you remember, the conventional wisdom is that there's not much good going on in the public schools, would that they would support them. But that's a whole other, I don't want to get into that. But
that is the stigma, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the stigma. And so I really wanted to see. I was really interested in it, and I wanted to see for myself. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a year and try and do it. And so I did what I usually do when I decide to do something and I'm afraid I won't follow through. I tell all my friends.
There you go. That's good. Get that accountability factor. Yeah.
In a number of weeks, people start going, hey, I thought you were going to be a teacher. What happened? So same thing with the book, by the way. That's how I wrote the book. Hey, I thought you were going to write a book. So anyway, I started to look into it. I went to Teach for America. I found out about the praxis test. I did all the things you have to do. And then one night I was on the phone with one of my friends who's this big reality TV producer, Leslie Price. And I said, Leslie, I'm going to take a year off and try to be a teacher for a year. He says, oh, that'd make a great TV show. I said, well, no, you got it all wrong. That's not what I want to do this. I says, and anyway, you couldn't do it as a TV show because the TV show, you'd have two agendas. The TV show would have ratings as an agenda, and you would have your students as an agenda. So it would be very hard to do the two. And anybody who's watched any kind of these quote unquote reality shows knows that it's not reality. It's ginned up, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So he says. And I says, and besides, nobody's going to buy a show about a teacher right now.
So pause for a second, Tony. I'm going to be unprofessional. So
That's all right.
This is my pitch, okay? So first thing we do is we get about 8 bottles of wine and we give it to the kids and we have them argue about who's dating who and fight each other and pull each other's hair. It'll be awesome, Tony. And then you can teach them boxing lessons and then you'll have them in there and they can fight each other. It'll be awesome.
So let me get there.
Okay.
Because you struck on something, you hit on something very important. And really is why the show didn't last. So what happened is he calls me back. I says, they won't buy it. He calls me back like in 20 minutes. And he says, we have a meeting at the A&E network to discuss your teacher show. And I said, geez, my teacher's show, that sounds pretty good, And then all of a sudden I kind of was like, but wait a minute. He says, no, they're going to let you do just the way you want to do it. It's going to be honest, what it's like to be a first-year teacher in a big inner-city high school. I said, wow. I said, man, if we could make that show and do it our way and really show what was going on inside an inner-city school, really what's going on, we could have a really big impact. So I sign on. And we did a test here in New York at a school up in the Bronx called Stinkin' Lincoln, which is it's like a little pilot.
Right.
And but New York wasn't interested, so I had to apply elsewhere. And I ended up. Michael Nutter was the mayor. He thought this was a good idea. Anything that could bring some attention to the public schools. And
he was really pro-education.
Right. So boom, I get a job. Now I'm at Northeast High School and I have 4 cameras following me around. There's 2 in the classroom. They're not allowed to speak to the students. And what is absolutely amazing, after just a few days, it was as if the cameras weren't there.
Wow.
The kids totally. I caught kids cheating because they were on camera. That's how I got them.
I saw that episode and it blew my mind.
I got them because the guy said to me, one of the editors says to me, those 2 kids were cheating in there. I go, what 2 kids? And I was watching them. How did they do this?
They're good, Tony.
And in the debrief, the 2 kids are talking to each other. One of them says, how'd you miss it? He's holding a giant camera.
That's what I said to them. What is wrong with you? Anyway. But it was a really amazing experience because, first of all, you talk about that opening moment. So, boom. It's the old thing where you write your name on the blackboard, you turn to the class, and you say, "Hi, I'm Mr. Danza, and I'm your English teacher." Well, I tried. So I wrote my name. I turned around, I looked at them, and there was, 36, 32, some 32. So I look at them, and, they're just staring at me. And I say, "Hi, I'm Mr. Danza, and I'm gonna try. I'm here, and I couldn't get through. And the girl Paige. This is my first experience with Paige.
Oh yeah,
it was a beaut. Raises her hand, and she says, "You wear an undershirt?" And I said, "No." She says, "Well, you better. You're sweating like a pig." She said. So, and by the way, remember, it's on camera.
It's all on
it'd be embarrassing enough.
Yes.
So it's in the show. So I thought the shows, I cried too much for sure, but I thought the shows were really, really a good depiction of a documentary of what it was like.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was going great, but of course, they want something, they want drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I had a producer one time. I was walking down a hallway with a teacher, with David Cohen, actually, my mentor, and I was walking down, and he was actually reprimanding me about something I had done. I think it was that I took it upon myself to give these kids a test, even though they had IEDs. I mean,
IEPs.
IEPs, yeah. So I took it upon myself.
IED's a little different. If they had IEDs, we'd have to do something else.
See how you do. It might not, who knows? Maybe they're holding you back by, it's against the law and everything like that. And there was a producer, hiding in a corner, one of the doorways. Mm-hmm. He was giving a stab sign to David, to really work me over.
Oh.
In other words.
Yes.
It was bizarre. And that was the beginning of the end. Because I rebelled. I just wouldn't do that. There was no way I was going to do it. I thought a poetry contest was plenty of action.
Right.
I thought a scavenger hunt I just thought the plight of a teacher was it. And I really am proud, by the way, really proud of the show. The show's really, really good.
I've seen the entire show, and except for episode 3. Episode 3 is not available anywhere, and I don't know why.
Why?
I don't know, but it's not released anywhere. But I've seen the whole show, and it is such an honest look at what a first-year teaching is. It's every run-in of every mistake a first-year teacher makes.
I'm good at that. really. If that was, I think that was in the show statement. He's really good at making mistakes.
That's what you gotta be. I mean, there's too much to do in a year.
Yes. And mistakes are part of learning. If you're not making mistakes as a first-year teacher, then you're really not trying, You're
not trying. You can't help yourself.
Yeah.
And then I took on other stuff. I helped to coach the football team, that was crazy. And I just tried to do as much as I could in the school. Mm-hmm. I really, in my mind, I think that I was going to do it for more than 1 year, that I would do it for 2 or 3 years was my... Mm-hmm. But then at the end of the first year, I remember thinking that when the principal actually said to me, which was, Miss Carroll, wonderful, wonderful principal, cared so much about her kids, and that when I first got there, she was very skeptical. And so she said to me, these are my kids. You mess up, I'll throw you out of here myself. She was really, really strong about it. Well, at the end of the year, she told me that she thought I made a pretty good teacher, and that if I wanted, I could maybe come back. And I said to her, Miss Carroll, that's the most flattering thing anybody's ever said to me. But at this age, I'm not sure I want to care this much about anything. Yeah. It's so overwhelming, I mean, one of the things I talk about that I don't think people realize, and I don't think teachers are trained for, is the emotional grind.
No.
The emotional grind, because we're not only teachers, we're sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, social workers, psychologists, you name it, job,
grief counselors, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Therapists, nurses.
And then
support system, yeah.
And the other thing that I found too is that the unmotivated student is no longer the exception. What I found is, in order to make the kids really work for you, they have to really think you care about them.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And every good teacher cares about their kids. There's no two ways about it. We care too much. I know it. They care too much. But anyway, so you go out of your way to convince them that you care about them, that this is important, and this will make their lives. In fact, there's no limits, and you do all this, and they start to believe in you, and they believe it, and they do a modicum of work. Sometimes some really go crazy, but for the most part, you get some work. The problem is that now that they know you care, they have this overwhelming need to tell you about their lives.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And some of their lives, I mean, it's not funny because sometimes you have to report some of the things they do.
Yep.
And they come from neighborhoods. I lived in the neighborhood too, which was really smart because I was around, and I saw the thing, I think a lot of times people have this mistaken impression that people who are poor or are less fortunate are not working hard. They're not trying. That wasn't what I saw. I saw people trying to really do the most they could with what they had. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I would say is that they don't understand that in many cases, not all, but in many cases, they don't understand how important parental involvement is.
Yeah.
We had teachers there making gift baskets to give to the parent-teacher night.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going to make a gift basket to get a parent to come to a parent-teacher night, you got a problem. I called a parent one time, and by the way, this was the exception with my kids. But I called a parent one time, and she told me he was my problem.
Mm.
Yeah, he's your problem.
Wow.
So
there are. I've to this, I've talked about this. I'm sure you had examples like this as well, Tony, where we have a fair amount of kids at our school where it is mom has found a new man, and now they have a new baby together, and there's kind of this other little family where the teenager that's in our class is a little bit on the outside, except when they need them as a babysitter. You know what I mean? And babies take a lot of attention. We know as parents here that babies do take up a lot of attention. So sometimes that parent all of a sudden now is focused on this new child with the new man. And we got this teenager here who's going through all the challenges of a teenage life and also being asked to be an adult, to babysit 3 or 4 nights a week while the new couple goes and does coupley things.
What I think of my stress-free childhood in the toughest neighborhood in New York City, in the East New York section of Brooklyn. But I had a stress-free childhood. And I think about the kids nowadays. I think we're really, as a society, are making a huge mistake. I often do this in my act. I do a lot of the American Songbook, as I said. And I say, I really love this music because it's had an effect on me in a way that affects me every time I hear it. Mm-hmm. I says, and I worry about the younger generation and, because the music they're listening to. I mean, after all, think about it. Growing up, every single song was about love, about finding love, losing love, needing love, having to have love, 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 love. And look how we turned out. So it just, it's a stupid little joke. But what I'm talking about is when you hear the things that kids are going through today, not only in this country, but all over the world. I mean, I can't imagine how people could think, oh, don't worry, they're all going to grow up well developed. I'm just so worried about that. I work here in New York City. I work for the Police Athletic League.
Yeah.
And PAL. And because I was a PAL kid when I was, I was 12 on Fulton Street in East New York, and the beat cop strongly suggested I give PAL a try. So I went and I boxed. That's how I started boxing too. I started boxing for the Police Athletic League and the Golden Gloves. And so I worked with PAL, and what I did was, in fact, they brought me on to be the new face of PAL boxing. I joined the board of directors and be the new face of PAL boxing, and I was honored and really honored. But I said to them, we're going to attract 3 kids and hurt them. So maybe we could come up with something, you know, a little bit more effective. And we came up with an acting program. It's called PAL Acting, because when you teach a kid how to act, you teach a kid how to act.
There you go. I do love that line.
And we started with 12 reluctant kids up in Harlem. Oh, and they were reluctant. And, but by the end of the summer, 4-week program, we had 34 kids. The word got out.
Nice.
There you go.
And so then we're over 800 kids now. We have 22 in college that we out of our program.
Oh, wow.
And we have a Cops and Kids chorus, and we have a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
We go to a school now and offer our services and say to the kids, they'll have an assembly for 200 kids, and we'll tell them it's free acting class. All you have to do is come, and 200 sign up.
Wow.
Now what do I do? You know, so I mean, I could, you know, you could really make a difference with this program, because kids today, I think, they're at another disadvantage, is that it's very hard to find a good role model. I mean, it just is. I mean, it's just
True.
look, I mean, I get mad sometimes at the videos and stuff, but then you got to remember that's what those kids are living. That's what they're writing about. So you can't get mad about that. But what it says to kids is what bothers me, what scares me anyway. You know, and so what we try to do is give them something else to think about, so another perspective. And the classes are not only about acting and improv, and we have incredible volunteers from all over the city, from the Upright Citizens Brigade, for improv, from the Christy Monty dance studio. I mean, we have tremendous people that work with us and great teachers, and it's all volunteer for the most part. Really unbelievable. And, we're making tremendous gains, but we try to give them something else to think about. And what's stunning and so exciting about it is that you'll get this resentful, tough kid, you know, from Brooklyn who decided to come, but I ain't making a fool of myself in front of those other people. The guys are from Queens. I'm from Brooklyn. You know, you find anything to, you know. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days later, they're saying to you, I have to support my ensemble. We had a girl come. Her name was Sophia. She's still in the program. That's another thing. You can't get rid of them. You get them. No, there you are.
No, they're like pigeons. You get them once and they just keep flocking.
So, and I love them. So this girl Sophia came from my old neighborhood in East New York, and she was angry and she was defensive. And I think, you know, growing up in East New York might do that to you nowadays. But you know, just out of sorts and 16 and where am I and who am I? You know, comes to the class and same kind of thing. Refuses to do anything. Just no, but keeps coming. Every week she comes, and it was an 11-week class. It was a winter class, you know, fall winter. So about the third class, I was teaching at the time, and I was actually teaching classes, and I kept taking shots at it every night. I said, "Come on, join! Come on, it's fun. Look how much fun they have!" Yeah. So we do this. One exercise called the mask exercise, where we get these expressionless masks on the kids, and then we tell them to act out, and they all turn into Laurence Olivier. You know, they put the mask on, and they just transform. And I got her in a mask, and she became just a stalwart of the class, and she was wonderful. She's just a wonderful girl. She really has plans now to go to college, and she's, you know, really determined.
That's great.
At the end of the first semester, we debrief her, which we do after every class. We get the kids together and we just talk. And by the way, the classes are not only about dance and movement and acting and improv, but it's about life. Because a lot of the teachers are like me, who are trying constantly to, you know, one of my favorite classes, one night I said, I don't know why, I said to them, I had a whole bunch of kids, 40 kids there, and I says, anybody ever had their heart broken? Oh, you had to hear the story. Man, it was unbelievable. So, I mean, we really try to have this kind of a well-rounded sort of thing for them. And that's what I think they need nowadays. Just something that takes their mind off what they think is expected of them. Mm-hmm. You know, my grandson graduated from the 8th grade Thursday. Virtually in LA. Not only did he win an honor award, but he also won the school spirit award.
Nice.
I I almost came out of my shoe. I forget. I almost jumped out the window here. I was
nice. Found Grandpa.
I had a conversation with him the other day, and I called him Sunday. It was so cute too because I texted him and I said, "Hey Nick, I want to call you." He says, "I'm free till 2." So I call him and he answers the phone. "Hello, grandfather."
Oh boy!
So, but I had a conversation with him, and I said, "You know, you have a lot of gifts. You've been gifted, and you can't. You have a lot of responsibility because of that. You know, you can't go just willy nilly now. You have to make something out of this. You know, you have athletic ability. You have brains. You have a personality that attracts people. You have a kind heart. You have looks. You have everything going for you. You have 2 parents who are radically committed to your future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to make something of yourself." And so that's what we try to tell the kids, that even though they don't have all those advantages, that they can, if they believe they can do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, that is.
Hey, you know, I forgot one thing I forgot. Before I was telling you a story about Sophia, this kid that came to the school, and I don't think I told you the end of the story, which is really the most important part of it. Yeah, we were debriefing her at the end of the year. Yeah. And I said, and they said to her, what did you get out of it? And she said the normal, like, bromides, you know, and by the way, things you want to hear. You know, I opened myself up. I saw a side of myself I hadn't seen before. I made new friends that I wouldn't have made. And then she says, and I realized that sometimes you can be a leader by being a follower. And I was like, that's the greatest thing ever. You know, it's like, about critical thinking. And it's true, because in an acting class, any acting class, by the way, there's usually 3 guys that want to do everything.
Yeah.
And so the teacher says, "Who's up?" And everybody, you got to sit down so that the other kids get up. And she realized that. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that they get because of the performance. It's this thing, I think we call it youth development through performance. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, when you're an actor, you got to look at people in the eye, speak clearly, you got to be present, you got to be a part of something bigger than yourself, part of the team. All the things you have to do. You have to reflect on your emotions and all the right. And so you get them in these situations. And what we find now, and this is our 5th year here at PAL, and before this I was doing it for 4 years at the All Stars, which is another program here in the city. Yeah. And what we would find is, through the performance, they developed in ways that you just were amazed about. Mm-hmm. You know, it just and now we really had a lot of success. We made a deal with SUNY Purchase, which is the State University of New York at Purchase. Yeah. With the Dean of Arts there is a man named Frank Candelaria. He's just now moved to Rutgers as their dean. So now we have this program called the Network, and it used to be called Pathway to Purchase, but now it's called the Network because we have other schools involved, and we have 22 kids from the program in college now.
Oh,
that's awesome.
And, I mean,
that is wonderful,
mind-boggling, you know.
Wow.
And to hear them talk, and to have them come into the program, and to hear them talk now, because every year for the last 5 years we've also done a benefit show. We do it at John Jay College, and we do a lot of different things, of course, from Shakespeare to they say the neon lights are bright on Broadway. We do all that stuff. And then we do a lot of testimonials, where the kids come out and talk about themselves and talk about what they've been through and what their lives are like and what they're doing now. And you just cannot believe, like you'll have a kid who'll come to the place, he's so quiet and so really insecure and afraid to open himself up at all. Maybe he's a little overweight, whatever you got, whatever that's bothering him. And then the end of the class, the end of the 11 weeks, you see such a change at graduation. Do you want to talk? No, I don't want to talk. At graduation, you can't shut them up. What happened? And so that's what gives me hope over here. That's what's giving me hope. And I think also PAL can really have an important part of bringing the police and the kids in the city together. It's one of our biggest problems that we have. We just don't have a cohesive enough relationship with the police department. There are some there's great. The Cops and Kids Chorus, fabulous. In general, I wish I could get more of a commitment from the police department because, if you really want a community police, as they say they do, this is the way to do it. Come to the PAL Center. That's when I used to go to PAL, it's a little corner, storefront, but there were these two guys there every day. Two guys. They were cops, but they were there every day. No matter, you'd show up. Hey, it wasn't like you went and they weren't there. They were there. Mm-hmm. So that's what we need. We need something where these kids feel like, they have a little bit of ownership of it.
Right. Yeah. Now you've taught 1 year, and I know you only have so much experience, or whatever. But give us your little 2-minute speech of advice for a first-year teacher. So someone's listening to this, they've just graduated, someone's passed it along to them, and they're going to be going in August or September, whatever, and they're going to be a first-year teacher. And what does Tony Danza say to them?
Number one, read my book.
Love it.
By the way, I'm not kidding you. Recently I was doing an autograph, one of the signings, and a young woman walked up with my book, and I was so thrilled. She had my book. I said, "Oh, I'd love to sign that." I said, "Why did you buy my book?" She said, "My teacher assigned it." And so there is some, it's out there. So
no, it's good.
Most importantly, though, I think that first of all, you just have to remember why you're there. Mm-hmm. You got to really remember why you're there, because there's going to come times when it's going to be trying, when you're going to cry. And you're going to feel terrible, and you're going to feel like a failure, and you're going to feel like you're letting these kids down, and this your life's work. This is, and they don't care about it. They don't care about your life's work. It's like all this stuff is going to happen, but you have to just kind of constantly remind yourself why you did this, why you're there, and then look for that moment when a kid gives you something that tells you, "Oh, that's right. I'm doing good. I did something good there."
There we go. Good job, by the way, for this one.
Nailed it. Thanks.
Cool.
We own that audio. It's copyrighted.
We do. Yep.
Yes. Send it down to the patent office immediately.
Uh-huh. Okay, guys, we really appreciate you listening to this episode. Part 1. I know you'll be just waiting for part 2. But some things that it kind of reminded us of is an episode where we had Miss Niemann on, and we had a conversation about being a first-year teacher and what it's like to be a first-year teacher.
And some advice that she gave, too, to first-year teachers.
Yes, and what was that advice, or do we have to listen to the clip?
Oh, you definitely have to listen to the clip.
Okay.
But yeah, episode 5, and we'll put a link for that below, too, because that was a great conversation. I love sitting down with Niemann.
Yes.
She's just probably one of the most, heartfelt people we've ever interviewed.
Yes. So you'll hear it in the clip, and then look for it in episode 5. So while you're waiting for the second part of the Tony Danza to be released, go and listen to episode 5 this week. Enjoy it.
Yeah, and Tony Danza Part 2 will be out next week on Monday.
There you go. Okay, so my first year teaching, you actually conducted what would be some unprofessional development. The school where we were teaching together had grown really big in 1 year, so they hired so many teachers, and there were 10 or 12 of us, maybe more, who was our first year teaching, all at the same school. So I don't know how you got administrative approval to do this or what you sold them on. But we were told we were going to go to this meeting, and it was for first year teachers. And we get there, and it's all us first year, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, deer-in-the-headlights teachers, along with 5 or 6 veteran teachers who basically said, "Hey,
oh yeah,
you've been in some trainings here, and you've been fed a whole bunch of stuff. But let us tell you what it's really like to be a teacher."
So you did a Scared Straight program for
wasn't
teachers.
quite like that. It was
So
more
a couple takeaways from that.
Expect.
The one that made a whole lot of sense, and I still think would be a really good idea. They said there should be some kind of a program for spouses of first-year teachers.
Support group.
A support group where they had spouses of first-year teachers. They could go and talk about what it was like to be married or to be the significant other of a first-year teacher, because it's very challenging, because their significant other keeps coming home and telling them you don't understand. Like, that's only the words that you're going to say.
Because you become like an abandoned spouse, I think is what we refer to it as, or something like that.
You're completely obsessed, and everything takes you so much longer than it will take you once you get better at it.
How were you there till 8 o'clock at night? School ended at 2.
Yes, what are you doing?
Don't understand.
Yes. Why does it take you 4 hours?
It's because the printer's possessed by the devil, and I had to print out just this section of the paper, but not the rest. So I had to cut it out and glue it on, and it made perfect sense.
Yes.
I unplugged and plugged back in the scan machine yesterday 8 times before I finally got it to scan one test. And then I couldn't get it to do it again. I gave up. I almost threw it.
Or I was rethinking the first 10 minutes of my lesson yesterday for 2.5 hours because I wanted to start it off just right. And I was changing the wording of this question or this, I wanted my PowerPoint slide to do all these fancy things. And then you realize, okay, here's what's needed and here's what's not. But in that, you told a story of a student and you said, I have no idea what I said to that student or what I did. But they said to me, because of you and how you taught this class, I'm moving to Africa next year.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Maybe it was because the emotion of the beginning of the year.
You teach science.
And literally...
But it's environmental, so we do a lot of global stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense then.
But the way you shared it, and I'm a goofy guy, but I was literally doing all I could not to cry. Because I get like emotionally worked up right now. Because it reminds me that even though we make jokes and we say funny stuff and it is ridiculous, like, we have the opportunity and things we say off the cuff, or maybe because we actually care about them, like, young people are making life decisions based on a sentence that came out of our mouth.
So I had this year the first day of school with one of my classes. I was telling them what to expect in the class and all this. And I kind of jokingly turned and I was like, you have no idea. For some of you, today is the first day of your destiny. And I said it. And when I said it, it's like the gravity of it hit all at once. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, crap. And you've always, right, as a teacher, we always know that the kids walk in your room and you never know. When I train new teachers, one of the things I always say is, you're not always going to be good at your job. Just don't suck so much that you get in the way of someone's destiny.
Right.
Because I think we're all born with a talent. We're all born with something that is our destiny. And, how many people are 40, 50 years old and they're like, God, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, maybe, what if your path had been obstructed by a crappy teacher?
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. That concludes today's episode. We appreciate you listening all the way through. So if you've listened this far, you obviously are either tied up in a room or you really liked what you were hearing. So please share this podcast with your friends, with your neighbors, on your social media. Please click subscribe if you are listening to it on some type of app where you can subscribe. Also, please follow us on Twitter. Unprocast. We are at Unprocast now on Twitter, so you'll get episode information and random stuff. Also, if you want to email us at Gmail. At unprofessionaldevelopmentcast@gmail. Alrighty, and I really want to have a big shout out. We now have listeners in Great Britain and in India. We are international, baby. So I just want to let them know that we know that they're listening and want to let them know that we appreciate that. We're going global, baby. Look out, Joe Rogan. Thank you.